So, okay, so this is the first of 3 games against Astrea.
It's a brutal matchup, Zombie Grub, but we are going to be starting our first game.
So here we go with 2 of the more prominent American announcers. The guy who I really like, whose name I always forget, and Zombie Grub, who's a legend. That's very loud and smarter than everybody, and so some people don't like her. I happen to love her, but she's a little loud, so I gotta watch the volume. So they're playing... They're playing a map inside and out. It's sort of a medium-sized map, maybe a little bit bigger than medium-sized. While we get started here, I'm going to just work on my image a little bit. not my social image, although I probably should work on that as well. So I'm streaming this from YouTube, and you can watch all of these games on YouTube. I mean, up until recently, you use the Opera browser. You can watch YouTube and Twitch stuff for free with no ads. It looks like people are getting around the Opera's ad cancellation abilities, but so far that hasn't been a problem here. So I can turn them up a little bit. Okay, they're there in the bottom right. By the way, this is my the big yellow mouse point is me, circling around. So when you see the big yellow mouse point, it's me. So here we go, Astrea, who apparently is American. I had no idea, and the Korean hero, who was great years ago and then went to the military, which is mandatory in Korea, and then is now back and dominating and innovating again.
Hero himself, that name, Hero, you know he knows how to win. So it can't
Zombie Grub, ZG, Jessica just talked about how there's waves where the South Koreans just dominate for entire periods of time, and then there seems to be a rush by mostly European and some North American, South American players, where it seems to be getting more equal, and then when that happens, all of a sudden, the South Koreans start dominating again. And the fact that the semifinals with Hero against Maru and the finals with Hero against Bunny are all South Koreans, not a coincidence, even though this was in the good old US of A in Atlanta last November 2022. This is the DreamHack Masters. And right now, there's a DreamHack ESL Masters going on, with the final rounds going on in a few weeks in Sweden. So already, with one stalker, Hero is causing just tons of problems at Astrea's second base. Here comes another stalker with a single one. So I don't think Hero actually feels disrespect towards the people he plays, but he does not pull back from trolling them or going after them with one stalker if he thinks he can win or gain any kind of advantage. He's not doing it to embarrass them, but he certainly does not shy away from doing things that might embarrass them. Let's just put it that way. Alright, let me make myself and the logo both a little bit smaller. I don't actually need to be putting the ESL logo up. I'm doing that out of a courtesy to them, and thank you for them for doing so much. So now Astrea is rushing out stalkers just to get the annoying adepts. And now here's an Oracle. I mean, Hero's throwing small numbers of all sorts of annoying units early into the main base of Astrea. We're only 4.5 minutes in. They have tiny armies, almost no supplies, but Hero's economy is way better. Astrea has almost no economy. Both of his bases have been attacked. There was a crazy match in the round of 16 against a laser that I just recorded a couple hours ago, where not only does hero build and get up to 6 or 7 oracles, but ends up maintaining 6 or 7 oracles for the whole game and using them as major spear tip offensive power, which nobody does any of that stuff. And it worked amazing, which means he won't do it again in the exact same way. But he has learned how to use the oracle. And the first of these types of videos I did was him losing to newly minted Raynor from 2019, when Raynor was only 17 and just getting started. And hero should have wiped the floor with Raynor, but he was way overconfident and wasn't playing nearly as strongly as he should have. But since then, he started to really hone in on looking at the current meta and then making it better for himself. And one of those is the Oracle unit, of course. So you might notice that the Protoss units look extra sexy in their teal and red. Those are alternate unit skins you can buy that are way too expensive, as microtransactions always are. But the Henri, which is what he's using, is what I use as well when I occasionally play Protoss multiplayer. It's a nice change of pace, especially when you have Protoss versus Protoss. The blue and gold is classic, but to have 2 blue and golds going at each other, it can be very confusing. So here we are, almost 7 minutes in. Hero has twice the army of Astrea. His economy is still at least as good. He's got more workers. Astrea is throwing Astrea is trying yet again to defend his secondary base, but Hero's already dominating with all of his stalkers in his face. 1 sentry destroyed. Boom. There goes his protective buff unit. He does have a shield battery, but he's far outnumbered. And I don't know when this game ends, but I think Astrea is able to pull this one along a little bit closer. A little bit longer than maybe he should. Which is typical Hero, which is that a Hero pushes so aggressive so early, but then doesn't retreat when maybe he should. And that adds some time to the game, but it sets up the longer game of taking out the enemy's economy and never letting them rebuilding it, which is what's going on here. So here he's with the depths now, going after the units, and even with the shield battery, those stalkers are having trouble. So look at the worker difference, though. I mean, 8 minutes in, Hero has almost 20 more workers, both as Protoss players, and they need so much gas and minerals to build their units and structures. And that just means with all those more workers that he's doing it way faster. And Astrea has been losing since the very beginning of this game when Hero attacked with a single stalker, and he's just not going to be able to recover. If you look in the mini-map here, Astrea with the blue is going to maybe try and do a counterattack. He hasn't done a ton of scouting. Certainly not enough scouting. Right, he tried to go after the relatively weak infantry zealots of Hero, but Hero was holding his stalkers right there. So now he's going at the base with zealots and stalkers, which is a great combo of basic units. He just beamed in some more units. Now Hero's army's up to 53 to 27, so he still has twice the army, still has way more workers. And this is 9 minutes when he does his first major attack. When he gets his preference, let me say, it is right now. 9 to 9.5 minutes. I've watched a lot of Hero matches. It's around 9.5 minutes. No matter what, when he launches as big of an army as he can muster. Now in the background, as you can see in the production, he's still upgrading and building a new Nexus. But boom, there it goes. So just pause it for a second. So he won at 9 minutes 46, but so when you watch the round of 16 series against the laser that I did and is posted and you can watch online, a laser in all 3 games, even though he lost all 3 of them and was swept 3-0 by Hero. in all those games, he managed to throw off by doing what you really need to do against hero, which is to be, even if you're not the most aggressive player, or even if you are an aggressive player, you need to be especially aggressive up against hero, because he's going to be aggressive the whole game, and hero specifically is sort of, annoying version of aggressive, tapping you on the shoulder, as I say over and over again. He will try and win it in the first 10 minutes, and here he successfully did so, but he's actually buying time for his production queue, usually with 3 bases, mostly, and anything past 3 bases with hero is just to mine minerals and gas. And he'll lose those and not really care because it's just for money. But in terms of building all your major structures and churning out units and so forth, and any defensible positions usually functions with 3 main bases, and times it so that right around 9 minutes and 30 seconds, he launches the force. And so let's do a little bit of rewind on this one here. So we'll do a time code thing. So at 2 minutes, okay, nothing's happening. So at 4.5 minutes, Astrea is up a little bit in economy, but they're dead even in terms of units and attack force. So yellow is their number of drones or probes that's doing the mining operations and building stuff. Red is army strength, not total number of units, because some units count as 2, 3, 4, 5, or even 6 units against the supply, which maxes out at 200. So it's the strength of your army, which can mean 13 units, but usually is fewer because most units count as more than 1 against the supply. Blue is minerals in the bank, and green is gas in the bank. So here we have at 4.5 minutes, even though they look totally even, and they're both trying to expand their second bases out, hero is already in the main base of Astrea with an Oracle and a couple of Adepts, and in the hands of hero, between these 2 units, both which were added after the original release, the Oracle was released in the second wave, Heart of the Swarm, with the Kerrigan Zerg campaign, but was upgraded with Stasis Ward and other things in the third and final major release, Legacy of the Void. Adepts were released in the third and final StarCraft 2 release, Legacy of the Void, and all of them, both of them and others that were released in the second and third phases, including the shield battery as a structure to recharge Protoss in their own bases, which didn't come out to the third and final phase. All of these have become incredibly important within the meta. So here he is already harassing Astrea. So he's gonna, if you look up here, he's now converted a War Prism. Oh no, this is an Oracle. What's he doing? He drops a Stasis Ward, which takes a lot of energy. People like to use Oracles for spying, but they also have the laser beam that shoots out. But the laser beam takes energy and needs to be recharged. And if you use their other powers, it takes away from that energy, meaning you can't use it until it recharges. But he drops a Stasis Ward behind the minerals of the main base of Astrea. It looks like... I'm not sure what that was attempting to accomplish. Let's look. Alright, so here he is again. And then Oracle drops a Stasis Ward, and it does open. Is it gonna Okay, I don't know why that didn't, I'm not sure why that didn't go off. I want to see really quickly. Did it go off? It just went off before. Hold on one sec, guys. You're gonna see my browser, because that's where I'm projecting from. Stasis voids, stasis trap. Excuse me. Traps for 21 seconds, which is a ton. I don't know how long it takes to. Let's see. Stasis trap. Trying to figure out, let's see. We'll look here at the Stasis Ward. Alright, the Stasis Ward, cloaked Stasis Ward, 21 seconds. costs 50 energy, which is a lot but standard. Has a range of 5, which is big, and only a cooldown of 5 seconds, but it costs so much energy. The stasis ward, it says it lasts 170 seconds. I guess the ward itself will last for a few minutes. In the field, once it clicks on, lasts for 21 seconds. Frozen units cannot move or attack, nor can they be attacked, and ability cannot be manually activated. The ability can. Obviously, you choose to drop it. So let's see if we can find out. So he does drop it. Looks like it blows up, I guess, and that was just a distraction. And then, but already, just to pause for a sec, they were dead even in workers, and now all of a sudden, hero has almost 10 more workers, less than 5 minutes into the game, which for Protoss is a big difference. Gets the Oracle out of there to recharge. He dropped his own crystal, his own pylon into the guy's main base because Astrea has so few units. Now Astrea has 3 units, but with just 1 stalker, which was all Astrea had before, he could have maybe warped in some more units. Of course, on the other side of that is it's so early in the game that hero doesn't have enough supply, potential supply or minerals or gas to drop in a lot of units. But with that stasis ward that didn't go off in this pylon, which is probably going to get destroyed, it's just distracting Astrea. It's taking money and time away from Astrea and distracting with the economy. And as you watch the yellow number, which is the units, and then the economic mineral and gas production stats down here at the bottom, it's just going to keep going in hero's direction from now until 9.5-10 minutes when he wins the game. As I mentioned, as I constantly mention and will keep mentioning, the basic hero strategy, overarching strategy, is to just distract the other side for about 9-10 minutes while he gets the infrastructure he wants in 3 or 4 bases, hero that is, and then around 9.5 minutes, no matter what has happened, if he can field any sizable army, even if it's only barely a medium-sized army and not a full big army, just a sort of medium or medium-sized army, around 9.5, 10 minutes, he'll launch at the other player no matter what, and then we'll launch again every 2 to 4 minutes, and again and again and again every 2 to 4 minutes for the rest of the match. Never stops the pressure. And that's why it's, if you're really serious about StarCraft or interested in these players and the higher level strategy, you just watch the production on here. No matter how crazy or uncrazy the state of the board is, he's always got stuff being built. He never has a ton of stuff being built. As I've said, he never has more than 2 or 3 of any one thing being built unless he's making a major push or is desperate to catch up. But he's always building at least one of 3, 4, 5, 6 different things, which includes the probes, which includes structures, and includes units, and includes upgrades. Alright, so we're 5 minutes in, and finally, Astrea's 3 stalkers should be able to take out that pylon. Here comes the Oracle back. You can just watch the economic numbers down here, and even though they spend the money quickly, okay. All right, now we're looking at Astrea's base. I'm never quite sure what this little triangular Zelda-ish Triforce Halo is.
Starting off this series against Hero, that is harsh. That's oppressive.
It's a really, really good mental blow that Hero's been able to strike here in game number 1. Can Astrea bounce back from it? He does still
what activates that?
Dancing around, but you can see, even though it may not look like the worker counts are that
Not totally sure.
anymore, it is just the fact that Hero has gone and invested into things like...
So another thing to always be watching, of course, other than the productions and the overall stats here, is what's going on the mini-map. And because of the harassment, Astrea is still working on just solidifying his first 2 bases and getting worker production going. Whereas Hero, I don't know if he's going for a 3rd base yet, even though this right here looks like an obvious 3rd base. But he is at least trying to control the middle of the field, which I'm always talking about. Maybe you don't expand past 3 or 4 bases, but you have to slowly over the course of the game gain military superiority in what's essentially neutral ground in no man's land in the middle, which on purpose are these maps are made not to have a lot of minerals and gas geysers, so there's no real reason other than capturing territory to build bases there. In fact, they can't support themselves because they can't mine, so that's where a lot of the fighting goes on, and the game is much more wide open than the old days where the maps were much smaller and they spawned closer together on the map. Okay.
A lot faster, and having a lot of his other production capabilities up a little bit faster means in like maybe a minute or so.
All right, I'm gonna
start
turn them
to
up a
see the
little
difference
bit.
in army supply, for example.
All right, and so here he comes again with 5 stalkers. I mean, he's always adding to his units. So if you look up at the production queue as we're about to hit 6 minutes, it's showing their units, and while Astrea has managed for the moment to catch up with the workers, it's only 44 to 41 in favor of hero. It's basically even, but he's got 9 stalkers and an oracle versus 1 immortal, 4 stalkers, and 1 sentry, which definitely favors. Immortals can take a lot of damage and can stay around a long time, and the sentry, if you can keep them alive, can provide you with some protection. But 9 stalkers is a lot, and even 1 oracle in the hands of someone as skilled as hero is absolutely deadly and can beat you in so many ways. All right, here we go.
We're already starting to see some of the effect of it.
And
Here comes an observer.
Thing, right? Going into that Blinken +1.
Is that a second? Is that a second oracle?
You both have very
Okay, so now he's attacking the base with what looks like 8 or 9 stalkers. Pause again really quickly. Look at the production tab. So the thing that Hero does so great is between the start of the game at 0 minutes and 0 seconds to when he wants to do his first attack between 9 and 10 minutes, he's almost always building at least 1 gateway or warp gate. He's almost never building more than 1 or 2, but he's always adding 1 or 2 so that by the time of the first attack, he can, because you can beam in 1 unit almost instantaneously per gateway or warp gate building. And so your ability as a Protoss to immediately and simultaneously beam in big armies is based on how many of those structures you have. This is a Nexus, so he's starting his 3rd base already down here, whereas Astrea is still having trouble holding on to his first 2 bases, and he's adding 3 more stalkers, which he's beaming in from previous things he had done. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 stalkers already, and against a couple stalkers, this 1 immortal and this 1 sentry, and he's doing another attack. So this is not more aggressive than hero usually is, because at 6 minutes or 7 minutes, he's still trying to delay a couple more minutes just by harassing the other player so that he can launch his patented 9.5 minutes in hero attack. Because he's had so much success slowing down Astrea's economy and base expansions, he's able to get up to at least 9 stalkers and is about to launch in 2 more, which is a sizable army on its own. And so Hero just says, screw it, I already have the jump on this guy in every possible way, and so let me do my first sizable army assault a few minutes earlier than normal. So here he comes in. Now, this is a shield battery, but shield batteries can only heal a couple units at a time. It can't heal everybody. You don't choose who it heals. It just sort of self-selects, I think. That'd be an interesting thing to look up real quick. All right, shield battery, which was added again in the final major patch 4.0, Legacy of the Void. Restores the shields of a single friendly unit within 6 range. So only 1 unit. It does 50 shields per second, which is a ton. Drains 1 energy for every 3 shields restored. So it has a limited amount of energy itself as it's restoring. 50 shields per second is a ton, which means it restores the shields of even the heaviest units in a few seconds, but it's auto cast. Now, you can do a shield overcharge with the Nexus to superpower the shield overcharging. because it increases the shield restoration rate by 100% and removes any energy cost of the restoration for 14 seconds. You really need to save those. So battery overcharge overcharges the shield battery. As I just mentioned, it says it increases by 50%. This other thing says it's 100%. I don't know what it's at right now, if it's 50 or 100%. But anyways, you can get it healing more than one unit at a time. But with just one shield battery going on. Oh, maybe that's what shield overcharge was doing before with the Zelda symbol. Maybe the Zelda Triforce thing above all the buildings was that. Shield batteries do repair structures as well as units, which is also really key. It makes it very powerful. And they only cost 100 minerals and no gas, which is really cheap overall for anything Protoss. And with 200 shields or 150 shields and 150 hit points of its, basically 300 hit points of its own for what it is. Let me just put it this way: if there is one structure that is constantly being built by hero who notoriously doesn't like to defend his bases with static structures, if it's not a gateway so that he can beam in more units, or units themselves, it's a shield battery, so that when he has to use a recall, bring all his army and beam them back to his main base to defend, they are immediately getting the benefit of shield batteries. All right. So the Sentry put up this little force field here. This was a nice job. The force field is specifically meant to do this, where you use the terrain and units to split the army. So he's trying to compensate, Astrea that is, he's trying to compensate having a much smaller force and having lost all the momentum and barely producing by splitting the army. And maybe I can take out half the army and then the other half. But the Sentry is going to go down pretty quick. But they blink. But he had already researched blink, while Astrea is still, that's this blue, a little sun type icon with the 1. It means he's researching blink. So hero researched blink much earlier than he normally does, because again, he realized that he could attack with a medium-sized stalker army earlier than he normally does. So he already has blink. So he blinked into the center of the base where he can come up to the main base. He's in the secondary base, but he also got out of the way this force field, so his army is no longer divided. He's going to focus fire with these. Here comes the Oracle and another Stalker. I'm going to do this slowly. The Sentry can also attack. Let's see. And now he just blinked again with his Stalkers outside the base, because Astrea is getting desperate, brings a few more Stalkers, and even is using his probes, which aren't meant to attack. They're just meant to collect minerals and build stuff. So he's already desperate at 6.5 minutes, and it's enough just total units with Hero's pretty little Stalker mini army here to blink to the entrance of the base. And he does do a strategic retreat, which you rarely see from Hero. You'd think he would still attack, but it's really not that big of a treat, because he has what's called a proxy pylon, a pylon that's close to your enemy's base and not on a base at all, but just a standalone pylon, and you hope they don't discover it or defend it. And so now he can warp in units right on the front doorstep of the secondary base and the primary base of Astrea. So he just warped in one Stalker. Here comes another Stalker. Here's the Oracle. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So now we have something like 14 Stalkers, where just a minute ago it seemed like he had one hero, that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So let's say 13 Stalkers coming in on the base. He uses blink to take up this area here between all the structures, so that I don't know if Astrea even has his Sentry at this point. Yeah, this little halo over their head is definitely shield overcharge. So, you know, he's already getting desperate with trying to keep his bases and units alive. But boy, is this a ton of Stalkers for less than 7 minutes into the game.
Yeah, the overcharge kept Astrea alive for a little bit longer. He was hoping that
yeah, you can hear Zombie Grub say what I was saying.
But
But whenever you see, whenever you're already, let me put it this way, let's pretend we're Astrea. Whenever you're behind in everything and you only have 2 bases and you're forced to take your workers to attack or distract from your second base this early in the game, it just means you have no economy and no army. And we're about to see that in a second. So he's trying to use the probes just to clog up this area between his very small number of stalkers and the large number that hero has. He does have a nice strategic position on this one immortal being behind the stalkers, but hero, of course, sees that immediately, turns the stalkers around, doesn't even use blink, and is just going to focus fire on this immortal to force him back, because you can see he's dying quickly to all those immortals. All right. Now, and the other thing that hero does so brilliantly is he's not always blinking either just one or all of his units at once, which is what most people do. He's blinking different numbers of them. If some of them are getting weak, he'll blink them out and leave the rest. Here, he tried to blink most of them, at least leave one as a distraction, I think. Yeah, as Zombie Grub just pointed out in the background, the female announcer, Astrea isn't done enough to prevent. I mean, hero's natural instinct is to be overly aggressive no matter what, but in this situation, when he doesn't have another shield overcharge and there's almost no units or production, why should hero stop attacking?
While expanding, while building probes, while continuing his technology, Astrea
Zombie Grub saying it all. Zombie Grub just summed it up where she talks about how, he's been spending here that is 7 minutes harassing in increasing levels, harassing his opponent's base so that he can't even finish the second base. But he's so good that in the background, which we're not even seeing, he's building more structures, building more units, building more economy, all while this micromanagement of units is going on.
He was just kind of hoping that hero would leave him alone or make a really big mistake.
And boom. So we missed it, but since over here there's a proxy pylon that is right outside the doorstep of the 2 or 1.5 bases of Astrea, as soon as he's able to beam in more units, he beams in more units. So his force went from 13, and then a bunch of them got nailed and went down to like 6 or 7, but now he's back up to a dozen or so, or at least 10 is hero. And you can see that both the probe race and the army race is going increase, and the economic race was already trending towards hero, but now you can see it in the numbers how big the difference is.
And hero has not. Hero's doing what he does best, which is be aggressive.
Right, hero does what he does best, which is being aggressive, as ZG says. Here comes the Oracle. When one Oracle in the hands of a hero can be absolutely deadly and annoying as hell.
Committed to making this attack happen,
and there's absolutely no reason, there's not nearly enough units or static defenses for hero to stop doing what he's doing. Hero has just sent up a bunch of adept shades, snuck them up into the main base, most likely to go after the units in that base. He still has 3 bases that are going, including a very full main base. He's got this proxy pylon over here and maybe even another gateway so that he can drop in a whole bunch of units at once. He's still building up here. As you can see, Astrea is doing nothing but finishing his blink upgrade because he's too busy just defending his primary base. Yep, here are the adepts. They teleported into their own shades, which you can do, and now immediately going after workers of the main base of Astrea. So that production stopped. As you can see, workers is 0 out of 14, 0 out of 3. So other than some gas, which will also get interrupted, Astrea just went from a fully mineral mine and fully gas mine base to almost nothing happening. And he's bottlenecked himself with 3 stalkers and a few workers, and so the adepts are still taking out workers while these 3 stalkers of Astrea tries to whittle them down. Now he gets the adepts out using their shade teleport ability. And again, there's absolutely no reason for hero not to camp out. It doesn't matter if Astrea doesn't. It doesn't matter if Astrea knows that there's a proxy pile in there, just because of the timing of how quick reinforcements comes. Even if Astrea hasn't physically seen this proxy pylon, he knows that it's there or somewhere close, and he knows how fast hero builds his economy and his infrastructure, and so he knows he only has a mere few seconds in between each of these attacks before more units comes. And so picking off a few of hero's units each time hero does these little micro attacks, it's just not enough, because it's buying time for hero. As you can see, hero's second base all of a sudden is looking very filled out. The proxy pylon is able to keep all those extra units coming in. Now we're a little over 8 units. Here come 2 more adepts in their shade form to keep harassing. Now on paper, okay, on paper, this little battle here, where are we? Okay, so on paper, at 8 minutes 18 seconds, Hero has enough stalkers to hold off 1 immortal, 1 zealot, and a few stalkers. Now you get another few stalkers coming in, but they're coming in via the gateway. He hasn't even been able to build a cybernetics core, which is the building you need to turn a gateway into the warp gate. Basically what happens with the Protoss, if you're new to this, is like the units for the Zerg and the Terrans, when you first build what's the Protoss equivalent of a barracks called a gateway, you can queue up to 5 units at once per gateway, but they only come out 1 at a time. When you turn them into warp gates, you can beam in simultaneously as many units as you have warp gates. And so once you get 2 or 3 gateways, you really want to get a cybernetics core, which is what allows you to convert them to warp gates, and so you can start beaming in gates. But meanwhile, the 2 unconverted gateways here by Astrea are only able to get out, I guess, 2 stalkers at a time if there's still 2 of them, and 1 immortal is just not enough. Even though it is specifically an anti-armor unit and thus strong against stalkers, there are just too many stalkers, and now they're outside the base. So even if there are shields left, it's not going to help Astrea in this situation. So now Hero's drawing him away from the base, so it's to split the army and keep him away from those shield batteries. And Astrea, does he bite? I can't remember. So now we're at 8.5 minutes. So we're 30 seconds to 60 seconds away from when Hero likes to launch his first attack, as I keep saying, at 9 or 9.5 minutes. And looky here, at 8 minutes 27 seconds, he has almost 20 more probes and has 12 higher army supply, which, considering they're both Protoss, and you see the economic difference, Hero is now fully dominating in all categories. But the most important category for this next 60 seconds before the game ends is the army number, the red one, and Hero is dominating in that. If you look up at the production tab up here, Astrea is so focused on micromanaging because he's just not nearly as good of a player as Hero, that while he's being attacked, he can't be working on his production and defending at the same time. He has nothing being produced. You never want to have 0 things being produced in StarCraft, especially in these early parts of the game. Meanwhile, Hero, even while doing all these hit and run attacks, he's got a forge going, which leads to upgrades. He's got 2 more gateways, which leads to more units. He's building the charge ability, which allows his basic melee unit, the Zealot, to rush in to battle, which is great for Hero's hit and run tactics. Here's some adepts up here. Yeah, Zombie Grub just commented sort of what I've been getting at, which is the fact that he got such an early proxy pylon outside his opponent's base early, and that it's still there and it hasn't gone away, has made this game, she said, screwy. I would say this is a pretty typical Hero game in terms of being screwy. But it's screwy in the sense of he was able to get stalker attacks going from almost the first moment of the game. Now, I mean, I'm stopping this clock every 5 to 10 seconds. Already, Hero is filling out his 3rd base, while Astrea is just making sure to keep the 2 bases.
This one isn't actually all that hopeful, despite Astrea going for that one last-ditch effort to go for an attack.
So there's Astrea trying to build a proxy gateway near what's essentially a proxy gateway for Hero down here. I mean, this would be a place, let's put it this way. This isn't a place to build, you see my yellow mouse. This isn't a place you would build an actual base as hero, because there aren't really a lot of minerals to mine or any gas to mine. But if you want to still have some area of physical, permanent, or semi-permanent area control, you can put down a pylon, one of those crystals, put down a pylon or two and a shield battery, and in this case, a gateway. But because hero's already converted his gateways to warp gates, and he can beam in a ton of units at once, and Astrea hasn't, Astrea has to put down a proxy. I think it's gone already. Astrea briefly tried to put in a proxy gateway as some sort of countermeasure against hero, but again, as long as they're in their early form of gateway and not converted to warp gate, they can only push out one unit at a time, so it really does nothing.
Alert hero to the fact.
Oh no, I was wrong. I thought this was happening way down here. No, this is just happening. This is happening at where Astrea was hoping from the beginning would be the third base, and is just starting now. But you can see the proxy pylon and the proxy gateway that hero put up here. On top of everything, I keep forgetting to mention that it takes, it could take something like 11 to 15 seconds for the full beaming of units to come in if you're just beaming around the pylon. But if you're beaming near a warp gate or a nexus, which is the central command center of the Protoss, in an area approximately yay big, it acts as a super mega pylon, and those units beam in at 4 seconds. So you go from 12 seconds to 4 seconds, which is why one of the reasons hero put not just a pylon outside his opponent's base, but also a warp gate, so that when he does these warp ends, they come so much faster. Look how fast they come in. Normally, if it had just been a pylon, they would still be warping in, and all of these blue stalkers from Astrea would be able to pick them off before they even finish their warp. But they've got the charge ability. He gets the warp off, and they're charging right at the stalkers, and the stalkers are forced to retreat. And hero was patient with his stalker mini army and sitting a little bit to the south, and now he's closing in from the west and the south. And so at right about 9 minutes, with an army strength of 53, compared to Astrea's 27, so he's already got twice the army of Astrea, and it's all outside Astrea's own base. This is the time to do the attack with a few with fewer units, but earlier, like at the 9-minute mark, as opposed to waiting an extra minute to make this army a little bit bigger. Hero knows now's the time, so he's going. Oh, and he even has more. I keep on calling them centurions, which is another form of them. Zealots down here. So he's got a very sizable force of zealots that have the charge ability, so that they can charge in and close the gap. Obviously, because they can blink, the stalkers can always close the gap. Sorry about that. Sounds like there was a gap in the. Looks like there was a pause there for a second. Let me see if that was just on my end. I think that was just on my end. Yeah. So a very brief tactical retreat here by hero, and now all of a sudden, I guess Astrea's not doing his math, because it looks like he's got all of these stalkers, and now he's got the advantage in units. They don't have access to all the information we do as the audience. They have to do the math in their head or guess, because we can see the whole map and we get the exact numbers. He knows that he's been picking off hero's units, so I don't think he expects that hero has as many units as he has. So Astrea, rather than wait around as the economic gap continues to grow because of all of Astrea's workers that have been killed in those first 9 minutes by hero. So he sends the stalkers now into this little proxy area. But lo and behold, just as the dozen or so Astrea stalkers start coming up the hill, and of course with terrain, he's at a disadvantage firing uphill versus downhill. 1, 2, 3, 4 stalkers at least coming in. I think this is a 5th one. 5 stalkers and a zealot coming in for hero, and that number is now 51 to 27. Now he's able to beam in even more units because he keeps building structures. So this is 2 more stalkers.
1 in 100 games, it works out. It's all justified. It's just zombie grub.
Yeah, the announcers say it's only 1 in 100 games that you're able to do something like this, where you're able to put a proxy, not just a proxy pylon as they call it, but the proxy warp gate right outside the other player's base at the very beginning of the game, and therefore be able to start beaming in units quick, fast, and in a hurry so early on in such great numbers. A big mistake by Astrea. I don't know why Astrea wasn't scouting this area, or at least getting a couple of stalkers to take down any potential proxy base. But I'm guessing in games 1 and 2, I can't believe I spent an hour on this first game, which is only 9.5 minutes. But you know what? It's so fun to break it down. But Astrea's been overestimating his own forces and underestimating what herO's been doing the whole time. Shouldn't have made that mistake in the first place, and hopefully won't make it in games 2 and 3, even though he's going to lose both of them, I believe.
I'm not so sure that this is one.
So here we are, 9 minutes, 21 seconds. The army is now down to just these stalkers for Astrea. herO's got an army strength of 43, which means that he has army that's not just here. He's about to beam in 3 more stalkers, is Astrea. But and they have converted to warp gates, so he can beam them in. You can see them beaming in here. But it's happening very slowly. And now herO's going to use the blink to get past this little bottleneck right next to the nexus and the shield battery, the most important structures. And Astrea is going to keep fighting. He's going to try and get behind herO, but herO just kills a whole bunch of units. And here come those backup. herO always has backups to the backups to the backups when it comes to units. And here comes a ton of stalkers. And at the very end, I mean, Astrea doesn't even let it get to that point because he can see it on his screen. As you can see that both we, the audience, which is the white, what's this called? A rhombus? Oh, God. This white rectangle, which is what we're seeing on the mini-map. But you can also see what they're looking at the mini-map with the red for the red player and blue for the blue player. So all of us are looking at this screen right here, which means that Astrea can see that even though he's already losing, 6 more stalkers and a dozen more melee unit zealots are coming. And so he does GG, good game, left the game, canceled, surrendered before the full destruction could happen. And there you have it. Unbelievable. So again, as you can see the time code at the bottom here from YouTube, 20 minutes, 37 seconds. That includes these little breaks in between.
Every so often, that does come out again. herO does something, or like, are you paying? Are you masquerading?
In between there's a short break in between the games. The breaks get longer as the rounds go along. These breaks aren't too long, but that means each game is going to be, only 6, 7, 8 minutes long. Here's a replay. They're going to break it down a little bit. I'm going to turn up the announcers a little bit so you can hear.
But the kind of upside for this is that this is not something that should ever happen again. If this happens again in the
right.
Best of 5, I think Astrea will really be beating himself
Yeah.
up.
All right. As the announcer said, Astrea made a huge mistake once, and there's almost zero chance that it'll happen again.
Across every single player playing, there's maybe one game in a tournament where you'll see a Protoss player.
Oh, maybe maybe that stasis ward did work, and I think that stasis ward did go off and got these. So yeah, so even though he only paralyzed, herO only used the stasis ward thing to paralyze worker units, since he only has 2 adepts and now 1, he can focus on making sure that those worker units don't use themselves to get in the way of what he's doing, which is picking off other worker units. Yeah, I mean, the thing about herO is, the classic, pause this for a second, we'll take a quick break. The classic unit that's just awesome and overpowered in both single player and multiplayer in StarCraft 1 and 2 are the Dark Templar, because they're permanently cloaked and they do a ton of damage, so they're very expensive, and if you see them with units with detection that can see cloaked units, you can take them down pretty quickly. They don't have a ton of hit points, But if you get just a 1 or 2 Dark Templar into your opponent's base and worker lines and aren't detected, or before you get detected, you can do so much damage with them before they even know what's going on or where you're going or what you're doing. So that was game 1 between hero and Astrea. And I'm going to mark it as such in the copy. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and do games 2 and 3. I can't believe I took a full hour to do that 10 minutes, but it was just emblematic of how one, in this case, pretty big mistake, hero is more than ready to jump on your mistakes at any moment. In fact, I think he reserves part of his brain. You know, maybe he'll be playing someone who never makes a mistake and he still wins, or he loses. But hero always is reserving part of his brain for, okay, if and when my opponent does any level of mistake of any type or sort, what am I going to do? And let me be ready for it. And in this case, he was ready to put that proxy mini base down right outside Astrea's base. And Astrea didn't even get a second base down 10 minutes into the game. Pretty rough. So we're going to take a quick break now, and we'll be back very shortly.